welcome to First Strike, First Look on a Tuesday here on VSiN. Dave Ross, joined by Lou Finocchiaro here on a Tuesday before we go overseas for a very exciting international card on Saturday. And Lou, it's always good to have you on the program, and I love talking to you on a Tuesday as we try to get anticipatory on some of these lines that we see on a Tuesday and where they might go before we talk again on Friday and before fight day across the seas on Saturday. The main event, Curtis Blaydes taking on Tom Aspinall. And right now, Lou, as I look at this, I see Aspinall still the undefeated heavyweight at minus $1.35 against Curtis Blaydes. Come back right now on Draftkings about plus $1.15 in a potential 5-round bout. What do you make of that number? Because, you know, Aspinall's taking the world by storm. We know what Blaydes wants to do. He wants to wrestle. Aspinall, we assume, would prefer to keep this standing. What do you think of that number here on a Tuesday?
Well, first of all, Dave, thanks again for having me on. I love talking about these fights. It is presumably early in the week for most, but I've been looking at them since Sunday, so I'm ripe and ready to go. And this fight, to me, the way I'm tracking is Blaydes opened this thing minus 115 some weeks ago. So he's gone from being regarded as a slight favorite to being pushed into underdog territory. I think that continues to move that way because this fight is in London. We're going to get a lot of Europeans betting this fight, and they're going to all be on the local people there, not just Tom Aspinall, but some of the others. And so those that really wanted to take Aspinall probably should have struck by now. And those thinking about Blaydes might want to exercise a little bit of patience and see how this thing is moving. Clearly, Blaydes is the much more experienced fighter. He's been in with much better. What we have with Aspinall is a guy that's 29, still young. He hasn't been into the third round of a professional fight yet. So there's your blueprint for the wrestler Blaydes, and that is to deliver this young man into hell and see what it's like in hell and on the ground, because we haven't seen Aspinall really what degree of black belt he really is yet. And I think we're going to learn all of that on Saturday night.
Yeah, and Lou, I see right now when you look at the total at 3.5 rounds and plus money at plus 135, your Aspinall point is well taken. So that's why you can get that plus money if you think Curtis Blaydes can extend this fight into the championship rounds and take Aspinall into those deep waters. The under right now, 3.5 minus $1.65 here. We've kind of laid out the blueprint here. If Aspinall is as proficient as his resume would say, would he mind going down to the mat with Curtis Blaydes? But if he keeps it standing, it feels like most heavyweights, he would have a distinct advantage over Blaydes with the hands.
You know, I don't know about distinct. Blaydes will still have 2 inches of reach, and he has fancied his striking lately. Hopefully he doesn't get carried away and thinks he wants to strike with Aspinall. As far as the total is concerned, I do think it behooves Blaydes to take him late. That said, Blaydes has looked a little bit slow in some of the later stages of 5-round fights, and Aspinall, being the younger guy, could show us something. Again, we have so much to learn about Aspinall in this fight. We know pretty much about Blaydes, and to me it comes down to will Aspinall be able to hit that balsa wood beak that Blaydes has? Now, it isn't really balsa wood because it's taken Ngannou and Derek Lewis to knock him out, but he can go if hit right on the point of the chin. I think that has to be Aspinall's goal. As far as the total is concerned, I surely lean to the over. I think this could be a Curtis Blaydes gets on top for 3.5 rounds. Ugly, boring Blaydes kind of decision is where I want to go with this, and I'm going to be judicious on the over and on the Blaydes side because I think both of those may enhance in price as we move down the week.
And that's the exercise here in First Strike, First Look to try to gauge where we think these numbers will go, and certainly overseas. And we saw this the last time they had a card over there in Great Britain. You're going to get the backers financially certainly have come in that way, as you mentioned with the Aspinall line changing. We're going to have Paddy Pimblett back on this card again. Now, he's not as big a favorite as we've seen the young, undefeated professional here in Pimblett. Taking on Jordan Leavitt here. Now, he's still a sizable favorite at minus 255. Leavitt plus 215 in a potential 3-round bout. I know we've been waiting to maybe fade Pimblett because the experience is not there. Do you think this might be the opportunity to do just that?
Dave, rarely will I correct you, but it isn't the experience that Pimblett lacks. It's any form of mixed martial arts acumen. I mean, he does have a little power. And he also is heavy on top. So from top position, and Leavitt's a BJJ guy, Pimblett could find some advantage. But overall, his handlers have manicured who he's fought perfectly. And Leavitt, quite honestly, to me, when this fight was announced, I was surprised that they chose Leavitt because he's pretty well-rounded. And though he has absolutely no power, I do think that he's got enough pride, and we've seen in interviews already, he's a little PO'd that they've picked him to be the next dummy that's going to be a notch on the mantle for Paddy Pimblett. So we're going to get Leavitt's best. I like him at 215. I took a little bit already because even though Pimblett's the local, I don't know that this price is going to go much higher. Leavitt shouldn't be underestimated here. And I like him a little bit in this fight. I know we're going to get his absolute best. And is that enough? We'll have to see. But I'm totally a fade of Paddy Pimblett based on what he brings inside the octagon as far as mixed martial arts weaponry.
Now, that's interesting about where we anticipate this number to go, because we know the general public, and certainly over in the UK, they're going to want to back Pimblett with their money, but maybe the sharps would counteract that is the point here, realizing that Leavitt at that price tag, as well-rounded as he is really the proper side to be on. Do you think that we might get almost dueling money there from the public versus the sharp side?
Yeah, I can't speak public and sharp. I can say this. It hasn't moved much. Mm-hmm. And this fight was announced 2 weeks ago. So what's really going to tell is the last few days. And that's why I took a very conservative approach on Leavitt, because if this thing goes up, if Leavitt goes to 250, and that's the only way it'll go, I can't see it getting pushed the other way in this situation, it being in London, et cetera. I've saved another half unit or so to come back on Leavitt and get more should the line go against me. But sometimes when you see a price and you see a fighter and you got a fair price right there at 2 plus 215, I didn't want to argue and be greedy. I was going to take a little so it didn't get away.
Very astute observation there. We know that Paddy Pimblett likes to pal around with Molly McCann, the meatball, back on the same card as well. So she'll be watching this fight very closely after she fights Hannah Goldie. And Meatball is almost a $4 betting favorite here. Goldie on the comeback plus 320. Is this another situation where Molly is going to look good against her opponent, potentially in a 3-round matchup?
Yeah, boy, they really set up a lot of these kids to be able to look good. And that's exactly what happened in the last London card, which was in March. And Hannah Goldie is strong as a country mule, and she's muscle bound as she can be. And they're going to go stand toe to toe and deliver. I think this one has McCann decision written all over it. I don't think she can get Goldie out of there because Goldie's so durable and such, but that's not necessarily a fight I'm dying to take. But again, if you think Goldie, or you want to take Goldie some way or how, wait, because you'll only get a better price as the week rolls on.
Absolutely. So that'll be a very interesting power couple, if you will, to watch with Paddy Pimblett and Meatball McCann. So many interesting names on this fight card, and one that really grabbed my eye is the return of no-time Volkan Oezdemir in here against Paul Craig. And boy, if you've been following Paul Craig's career, He seems like a guy that when you think he's out, that's maybe when he has you in trouble because he gets these submissions from some very bizarre positions in the octagon. What do you make of Craig at plus $1.45 against Vulcan, who's minus $1.70?
A day or so ago, Dave, I released Craig at 150, plus 150. He opened plus 115, and it was, again, another situation where I thought the line was just getting out of whack. Now, Ozdemir's a powerful guy, and they've only put him in there with the absolute best and killers, and he now has decided to quit training in Switzerland. He went to Sweden. He's training with Gustafsson and Chimaev. So he's really focused on his career. He wants to do well, but he's primarily a striker that is susceptible to the submission. Craig is a Brazilian jiu-jitsu savant, and he's really susceptible to being outstruck, but he's a dominant grappler. So each man's strength is the other man's weakness, thus the intrigue here. But Craig at plus money like that, I think, was a little obtuse, and he's got the momentum, and he's beat guys like Ozdemir. As much as I respect Ozdemir, I think Craig at this price is too much for me to pass up. A Scottish fighter in Craig against a Swiss fighter fighting out of Sweden in Ozdemir.
That's going to be a hellacious matchup right there. You mentioned it with Ozdemir being in there with some of the very best. Of course, fought Daniel Cormier for the light heavyweight championship not that long ago. Feels like an eternity ago, but he came up short in that one. And you mentioned that he's training with Alexander Gustafsson, and Gustafsson is back in this card. And again, at one point, maybe one of the best matches we ever saw at light heavyweight against John Jones back in 2013. Here we are in 2022, and Gustafsson's still in there against Nikita Krylov here. Now, Gus is a big dog. Plus $1.60, Nikita minus $1.90. Does Gus have enough in the tank to cash as a plus dog?
Boy, what a great question that is. I mean, here's a couple. I mean, we don't really have a lot of data on Gustafsson, where his head's at, where he's been. And yet Krylov is just as uneven as he could possibly be. There's no getting a rhythm on this guy. And so I'd have to lean to Gustafsson as the big dog here, but I'm hoping for a little bit of understanding as the week rolls on. Maybe want to watch the weigh-ins and see how easily Gus handles 205. But I think Gustafsson, if he brings it, is the more refined fighter. He's going to be 2 inches taller with 2-inch reach advantage. If he's there to fight, I could see it going his way, and I like him at a plus price.
It's just going to be a raucous crowd. You know, we got the Jokers back in there, Jack Hermansson against Chris Curtis. We've got Mark Diakise's back in this fight card. Makwan Amirkhani's back in this fight card. Is there any other fight? Because, again, we've already mentioned 5 really intriguing possible dogs that could cash on Saturday. Are there any other fights on this card, Lou, that's really jumped out to you on a Tuesday?
Yeah, I'm really still looking, but you mentioned a couple good ones. I don't think Hadzovic should be such a big underdog, and I'm going to be targeting him and looking at him through the week. And Amirkhani, he is a guy that lives on the submission. And Jonathan Pierce, the bigger, stronger guy, probably a better wrestler, but he can make mistakes. And you make a mistake against Amirkhani, who's going to be the local fighting out of Finland, and you're going to be put to sleep. So, you know, maybe Amirkhani as a hometown guy. And again, if it's a close decision, I'd lean to Finland over the U.S. getting any kind of decision in London.
Yeah, because it's going to be a raucous crowd, and sometimes that does affect the judging, as we've seen in some of those potential 3-round bouts. Of course, talk with Lou Finocchiaro. Follow him on Twitter at Gamblue. And Lou, before we sign off here, tell the people about the Bout Business Podcast, what they can hear each and every Friday.
Well, each and every Friday, there's a UFC card. And remember, fight enthusiasts, this week's card, a Pacific time, kicks off at 9 a.m. So Friday afternoon, the Bout Business Podcast will drop. It's 16 to 18 minutes of just fight releases for that fight card with a short synopsis and a review of what we've done the week before, because we keep a running total and we track our profitability.
And again, we're going to see you again on Friday for First Strike. And you always do such a good job at looking at those weigh-ins. And so for some of those fights that you already mentioned here on First Strike, First Look, is that, hey, maybe you wait until Friday in some of these prices, see where they move as the week goes, see how the weigh-ins go, and we'll give you the latest with Lou come Friday on First Strike. Lou, always appreciate the time, my friend. Can't wait to catch up then. Thanks for joining us on First Strike, First Look.
Thanks for having me, Dave. Good luck to everybody.
There he is, everybody. Lou Finocchiaro. Follow him again on Twitter @GamLou. We'll see you Friday for First Strike on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.